Great, welcome everyone to the Creative Natives Graduate Workshop. We will be, for the next hour, trying to prepare you as much as possible for the world of work. Charles, I think, second time guest on the show. So, Charles, I might just kind of jump in with you if that's all right. I guess from the last time, was there any key takeaways that you think were valuable, just to kind of help me out a little bit?
Oh, put me on the spot there. It was a while ago.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry. Nothing really comes to mind. So, I mean, it was really good. Don't get me wrong.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Just help me shape it. But look, I might just begin with just ask everyone, and don't worry, I won't need you to speak. But if you want to just chat in there, we've got Leah, our marketing manager, who is moderating the chat function. But if anyone could just type away the area that they are looking to get into professionally, whether it be creative, PR, advertising, if you could just chat there, just to kind of give me a bit of context for what everyone is looking for.
Okay, we've got a couple of graphic designers here. Just waiting for marketing and PR.
Yep.
Web dev, graphic design, specializing in branding and advertising. So lots of designers on this one.
Designers, yeah, awesome. Okay, great stuff. Cool. So we'll kick off. So I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Ryan. I'm the founder of Creative Natives. We are a recruitment agency that specialize in the design, marketing, digital space. We have offices across Sydney, Melbourne, and the Gold Coast. As I mentioned, Leah is manning the chat function today, who is our marketing manager. This session is going to be recorded, and we will be sending you the recording. So as much as you can, obviously get involved in the conversation. We've got 9 in the group today, which is a nice number. So if there's any point that things are moving a little bit too quick, or you're not sure about anything, please feel free to jump in the chat, or even take yourself off mute and ask for it. These sessions are far better when they're interactive. Okay. So we've got a bit of a mix here today. So I'll kick off hopefully what we'll go through today. So the topics we'll cover off, or as much as we possibly can, is why you should build a personal brand and how to do it, how to land an internship, tips and tricks to nail your cover letter, the best way to present your work, and practical ways to kickstart your career today. So, and we should leave about 10 minutes at the end for a Q&A. So please feel free to save up any questions. Before I start, I just wanted to give you a bit of context why we do these events each month. As a recruitment business, we see firsthand how difficult it is for a junior or somebody graduating or starting out their career to get the foot in the door. And I guess, you know, as a recruitment agency, we are tasked by our clients to find us talent with a certain level of experience. So often it is fairly difficult for us to place juniors without experience, but that's not to say that we don't have empathy and want to help you out. So that is why we do these events. And so as much as we can pass on to you as possible, I guess I want to mention I'm in no way a career coach or have any special qualifications, but what I do have is about a decade of experience in the recruitment space, and I want to give as much of an honest feedback and advice as possible. I think there is a lot of hot air when it comes to advice for grads. I think that that advice often comes from those who aren't really in the trenches and know what it's like. So hopefully this will be a bit of an honest insight into the world of work in that creative space. Cool. All right. So bit of background. So I started Creative Natives back in 2019. 4 years now. In fact, we are now a company of 14. And the reason we have been successful or have grown in a way we have is largely down to our online presence. I think maybe some of you I am connected with on LinkedIn, but that's not just me, but that's the team, and we've all built our business and our personal brands through social. And I want to just have that as a starting point, and we'll kind of go into the building a personal brand and how we go about it. But I just wanted to ask, firstly, does anyone have any experience, knowledge, or understanding of what it looks like to build a personal brand online? Anyone's got any experience with that? So if you want to put it in the chat.
Nothing's coming through the chat, so
No,
yeah,
all good. Okay, so look, I think firstly, personal brand, there is a bit of a misconception that it has to be for people that are super experienced, super knowledgeable, and have been doing this for a number of years. But look, I think a personal brand, in a real nutshell, is the way you define and promote what you stand for as an individual. And that can be a combination of experiences, skills, and values. And for creatives, building a personal brand is a big part of how you can pitch yourselves to potential clients. And I want to kind of get you to think about LinkedIn for a moment, and think about LinkedIn as, rather than just a tech platform, but see it as an opportunity to be in the biggest form of networking event. Okay, so obviously during COVID, those networking events were taken online, but LinkedIn is very much, I think, for those beginning in their career, a real opportunity to be able to converse and have interactions with potential hiring managers. Okay, and I guess the first thing to sort of mention when it comes to that networking event, the same etiquette applies to an in-person event as it would do on LinkedIn. So as in an in-person event, you wouldn't just go up to somebody straight away and ask for a job. The same principle applies to LinkedIn, and we'll kind of go through how you can actually start building your LinkedIn profile that will be done in a way that hopefully we'll start having conversations with potential employers. Okay, is that all good? Yeah, great. Just quick, is everyone on the call on LinkedIn? Just quickly chat in there.
I can see a couple of nods in the video. There's a couple of yeses in the chat. Looks like everyone seems to be on LinkedIn.
Yep. Well, that's a good start. It'd be awkward if nobody was on LinkedIn. But is anyone, before we go into the slides, is anyone using LinkedIn at all for building a brand and networking at the moment, or does it feel like it's a little bit out of your reach at the moment?
We've got trying to working on it. Yes, they're using it to try to build their brands. Yeah. Couple of them, yeah.
Great. Okay, awesome. So hopefully this next part will just, at least for those who are thinking about it, hopefully give you a bit of a step-by-step as to the process of actually getting that going. Okay, so I guess before we just jump into that too much, the way I want you to all start thinking about is that when you're posting or when you're looking for a job, there's two really main ways you can go about it. One is you can go through the process of applying for jobs, getting a rejection based on not having enough experience, etc. And you can continually do that, which is time consuming. It can be a bit of a morale drainer, but I don't think that's necessarily the only way to go. Okay, you can be a needle in a haystack, or you can start working on your personal brand and standing out from others graduating, and will actually give you a bit of a point of difference. Okay, so we'll start off with creating your LinkedIn profile. So the first thing I'm going to mention, which is super important, is your profile picture. Okay, unfortunately, what I would say, the photo of you graduating or having your friend's face cropped out of a picture is probably not going to represent you and your brand in the best possible way. Okay, remember, we're in the creative industry, so the picture of yourself, you want it to reflect the industry that you're trying to get into. So you know, what do you wear? You know, if you're trying to get a job in a creative agency, I'd probably refrain from wearing a suit. I would absolutely make sure that your picture is warm, friendly, has a smile on it. We as humans are very judgy, and I think that first impression is really important. So if you haven't updated your picture in a while, it's a really good opportunity to take a new one, make sure that it's relevant. You know, there's loads of street art in Melbourne, which you know, is a nice backdrop for it. But I think first off is having a picture that is warm, enticing, and on brand. Okay. The next thing which most people don't focus on doing, but as a creative, I would 100% encourage you to do it, is actually personalize the banner on the top of your profile. So a lot of, or I'd say a vast majority of people on LinkedIn have just the standard backdrop on your banner. If you want to get an idea or a feel for what I mean, with creative natives, we all have the same banner, which we try and have it consistent with our brand colors. So it's those small touches that I think really set you apart. I know Canva has a lot of free templates. So just really focus on the aesthetics of your LinkedIn profile and make sure that it's representative of the branding that you want. Okay. So in terms of the actual body of the LinkedIn page, there are about sections. You can have within that, you can have links to your portfolio. You can have lots of different articles that will you can save as your homepage. See LinkedIn as very much your personal website. Okay, as a recruiter, one of the first things I do is when someone sends me a CV is I'll put their name into LinkedIn and look at them straight away, because I think you can gauge far more from a LinkedIn profile than you can a static CV. And particularly when you haven't got as much experience as possible, you've got to then really leverage that homepage to represent you and represent the work that you've done. So even if you have got limited work, what you have got, make sure that it's featured on your LinkedIn page. Also, it's really important that when you're describing yourself and your skill set, you're able to articulate what and how you can solve a potential problem or a client needs in a very quick, snappy synopsis. Okay, so if you are a designer, make sure that when someone is reading your profile, it's very clear what you do and the type of work that you've done. Okay. Any questions on setting up your LinkedIn profile at all?
Nothing in the chat, but if anything pops up,
yeah, absolutely. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So one of the things that I would highly recommend as well within LinkedIn is, so each week you are allowed to add 100 new contacts to your account. How I would go about this would be thinking about who the companies that you want to work for and who would be the hiring manager for those companies. Okay, so if, for example, you're a graphic designer and you have decided that you have put together a list of companies you want to work for, who's the creative director there? Who's the head of design there? And start adding those people with each week to your network. That compounds a lot over a course of a year. So if you reach your 100 new contacts each week, you're going to have a network of 5,000 relevant people to your network that you can then start engaging with through content. Okay, so you know, it's really important that you stay true to the course and add those 100 each week, and you will be amazed at the impact it will have over the course of a year. Okay. If you don't feel confident enough to add them straight away, you can also follow someone on LinkedIn. That means that you will then be notified when they post something. A real hack to get on the radar of a hiring manager is actually conversing with the content that they post. Okay, so you don't necessarily have to directly message them and wait to get something back. If someone has posted a piece of content, regardless of their seniority, it's a fairly vulnerable process of putting something out to the world. And guess what? If you're that person who engages with their content, again, it's a way of putting yourself on their radar. Okay.
We have a couple of questions actually.
Yeah, get cool.
The first one is, so the person who posts the job ads on LinkedIn, are they usually the hiring manager for that job?
I mean, it depends. So sometimes you might have a person in their talent team that are posting the jobs. The company itself might be sharing a job generically. So I think what I would encourage you to think about is who the role that you're trying to apply for, who would be the hiring manager of that. And sometimes on the job ad itself, there'll be a contact there. I would reach out to that person directly and connect in with them. Again, we're trying to stand out from a crowd here. So if we're just pressing the apply button on a job listed, you're probably going to go into a pile of lots of people that have done this. But what we're trying to encourage here is trying to actually get on the radar of the hiring manager directly.
We have another question.
Yep.
What is the best way to introduce yourself to potential new connections, like when you're sending that connection request?
Yeah, look, I think first of all, we'll come on to this in a bit later on, but in a nutshell, what you want to be able to demonstrate in that original message, and you obviously have limited characters on that outreach, but you want to show that you've done a bit of research and you've taken a bit of initiative. Okay, so I think speaking around what has bigger cut through is, if you're reaching out to somebody, have a look at their LinkedIn feed and see if they've posted something. If you introduce yourself and say, hey, I love what you wrote about X, thought it'd be great to connect, I think you're going to have a far greater success rate if you've demonstrated that you've done a bit of research than just doing a blind outreach. So as much as you can, do a bit of research, give a bit of personality, and as much as you can, make yourself memorable when you're making that connection.
Cool. That's it for questions for now.
Cool. Okay. So we have got your LinkedIn page set up. So you've got your banner looking fresh. You've got your picture updated. Your about section is looking great. Now, here's the part which is going to be a little bit out of your comfort zone. And I think I've done about 8 of these sessions, and I think there's probably a handful, up to 10 maybe, that have since then gone on to posting regular content, which I see, and obviously is, you know, it's really awesome. But I want to kind of give you some pillars in which you can base your content around. Okay, so just moving away from that imposter syndrome that we all have of, oh, what do we write about? No one cares about me, etc. It's not true. Okay, and I think that regardless of your level of experience and where you're at, I think everyone has something useful to add. And here are just a couple of pillars that I think would be a good basis to base your content around. So educational. So if those of you who are at uni at the moment or graduating, I think regardless, people want to know about what's going on at uni and what are the things that are being taught and your understanding of the syllabus and how those things. So you can provide that educational pillar to your content, because I'm sure hiring managers and those people are interested in what's actually happening at university level. Okay, relatable content. Now, this is one pillar that performs far greater than a lot of things, and relatable doesn't have to be this amazing, perfect world that we live in. All right, I think actually being human and being vulnerable, and you know, really kind of developing that hey, look, this is what I'm struggling with, or this is what's happening, I think creates a big sense of people resonate with that. So if you've had a small win, or you've had an interview, or you've had a presentation, talk about that. Okay, people like success stories, and people want to know about you, and that's essentially what people are buying into, is you as a person. Okay, so the relatable bit doesn't need to be perfect. If anything, the imperfections are what make it perform better. Okay, inspiring. Going back to that celebrating success, whether it be finishing, graduating, whether it be doing your first full day's work or anything like that, like really talk about that and shine a light on that, regardless of how big or small it is. People get behind a success story. Entertaining. Yes, LinkedIn is a business or work platform, but I think there's no harm in having a bit of humor. And I think some of the best performing posts our team have ever done have been related to being humorous. Okay, so don't be super serious, etc. Show some personality, because again, the industry we're in it fits in well with that. Okay, the opportunities, and I won't go too much on more about content, but it will genuinely change the way in which you the opportunities in front of you. Okay, but what I would say is it does take consistency. The way that the LinkedIn algorithm works, it's not going to post your content at first is not going to have mass views and mass engagement. The reason behind that is the algorithm is set in a way that will require regular and consistent content. So rather than looking at metrics like likes or engagement, focus on consistency, and that will at least then help you get in the habit of doing so. And look, there will be times where your content gets absolutely zero engagement, but that is equally important to helping you shape out what content works. Okay, and in a bit I'll show you some people to follow on LinkedIn, and that will then help you kind of get some ideas around that.
We have a question about content.
Yeah.
So those posts, well, the content, can it be repost, like sharing what other people have done, or should it be original content?
Yeah, so I would avoid sharing articles. They generally don't perform very well in it, and I think we have so much content available to us. When someone else posts something that isn't their own, it often just gets overlooked as just another piece of content. People want to see opinions and their thoughts on it. So if you saw an article that you thought, oh, I could share that, I would probably take the idea, put your own content together, and something that's key is if you are sharing an article, put the article link in the comments rather than in the main body of your content, and then people can then do that. But if you're just resharing content, it won't get seen by anyone.
Is that the same for also like resharing someone's post, not necessarily an article?
Yeah. So resharing someone's post is also not going to do that. And we'll share with you. I think we've got a thing about LinkedIn hacks, etc. We'll share a bit of a list of things that you should know about the LinkedIn algorithm, and that will help you understand what's going to work and what's not going to work.
Cool.
Awesome. Cool. Great. And I think just on this part, and it really is uncomfortable to start with. You're probably going to feel like the most, it is a moment in time where you're going to go, this is pretty out there, out my comfort zone. But I really would 100% encourage it. And I have seen firsthand people that have, through content, landed themselves some amazing opportunities and put themselves in the way of opportunity. So I 100% encourage you to do this. And if there's any of you that is thinking about a post or wants some help, please shoot me a message and I can give you a bit of a thoughts on it and whether some feedback on it. Okay, so but if we could all try at least one post and just get in the habit of it, it will significantly improve your chances of landing a good job. Cool. All right, so I think that's enough about content for now. I'm going to just talk about internships next. Has anyone done an internship before?
Alrighty, we've got yes, 2 internships, yes, no. Someone's done one, someone's doing one right now, awesome. Yeah, so a bit of a mix, but mainly yeses.
Cool. I might just actually ask Leah, what's your experience with internships?
So I got towards the end of my master's degree and was like, oh crap, I have no experience. Let's go find some internships. I did 3 in 1 year in order to be able to land myself a full-time job by the end of that year. They were all great experience. I actually got to do stuff, but they were all unpaid, which kind of sucked. So I still had to balance uni, working part-time, and then these unpaid internships as well.
Yeah, and I think most businesses now will pay something, but I really want to stress that I really support internships, as in encourage people to get them, because that to me, when you have an internship under your belt and you are, say, working with a recruiter, that's the small thing that allows a recruiter to then have a conversation on your behalf with a client and say, hey, look, I'm working with Johnny or Jane and they've done XYZ intern and this is why you should meet them, okay? I guess there's a perception with a lot of companies of hiring grads is, are they committed to something and do they definitely want to do it longer term? And that's a perception, whether it's right or wrong. But I know that speaking to a lot of business owners, they go, yes, we've had an experience with someone coming in and then they change direction 3 months in, okay? If you have done a few internships, that will alleviate that concern and give you a far better chance of getting your foot in the door. Okay. In my experience, I've seen people go in and do a week or 2 here, and you've got a platform to really make your mark in an organization. And I think most businesses, if you go in and show enough attitude and desire and hunger, they will generally either give you a very good reference or potentially offer you something further down the track. So I really, really encourage them. And as I said, I'm not condoning not paying people, but if you can if you can have an internship under your belt, you are going to have a far greater chance of getting your foot in the door. Cool. Okay. So how do we get one? Okay, and there's a couple of suggestions that I would do, and I think most people in here are trying to get into that creative marketing and digital space. So there's a couple of websites that I would encourage you to check out, and there's Mumbrella and there's Pedestrian TV. There's a few others, but ultimately they are guides or information around which agencies are winning which piece of work, which clients have done this, etc., etc. So you by reading that, there is an email newsletter that goes out. You will be educating yourself around which clients are working with what agency. So if you see an agency win a new piece of work, one of the approaches I would suggest is reaching out directly to that client. And again, talking about how to approach businesses, I would start off by something like this, and I want to say this isn't got 100% success rate, but I think it's far better than just a generic message. But you could say, congratulations on winning X client. I'm sure this win is very excited, and I wanted to see if you needed any extra help over the coming weeks. I'm currently studying advertising, marketing, PR, whatever you're studying, and would absolutely love the chance to help your agency with the admin work that I'm sure takes up a lot of your team's time. I'd love the opportunity to demonstrate my passion for the industry and get some first-hand experience, and I can't think of a better place to get it from. Okay, now what that is essentially doing is showing that you've taken an interest in that business. It's, I guess, good for their ego, congratulating them on winning a piece of work. But by saying you're happy to do the admin work, it's essentially saying, look, I'm happy to do the grunt work, the stuff that your team don't have time for, and takes away that concern of, oh, where do we put them if we bring an intern into the business? Okay, so have a go at it. As I say, it's not going to have 100% success rate, but I would say that you're going to have a bit of cut through versus just, do you have an intern? available. Does that make sense, everyone?
Yep, looks like it.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to just talk about your cover letter now. What's everyone's just quick thoughts on cover letters? Pointless, waste of time? What are your thoughts on the cover letter?
I personally hate writing them
Yeah.
because you have to customize for every single job you have to do. I'm getting some nods, large time commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are a necessary evil, okay, but I think that the reason why people fail with cover letters, first off, I see so many that have a cover letter which is used for every job that they apply for, which I think if you're going to do that, then you may as well not have a cover letter at all. But I guess there's four tips here that I'd suggest that you try when you're doing a cover letter, and hopefully it should get you a bit more traction. So first off is articulate why you want to work for the business, and don't be afraid to show some emotion and personality. If you're passionate about the work they do and what they stand for, tell them they want excited and passionate people working for them. Okay, so just go out and really demonstrate why you want to work with them. Check out their website and see if you can find the company values. Talk about how their values align with yours and how important they are to you. Do some social media stalking and Googling the CEO and senior leadership to find thought leadership pieces written by them. They'll give you a strong grasp of what exactly is important to the organization, which you can then talk about in your cover letter. So most businesses, there will be some reference, or you'll be able to find something that they've done, whether it be a press release or something. Again, if you can, through your cover letter, demonstrate that, then you're going to be, ahead of the game on that one. Okay. And then I think lastly as well, is have a look at their social media and see what their tone of voice is, how they talk. A good cover letter will reflect the tone of voice, and you'll be able to demonstrate your ability to read the room of that organization. So if they're super casual, we recruited a few years ago for Who Gives a Crap, the toilet roll company. They obviously have a very particular tone of voice, and I saw firsthand that the importance that they placed on the cover letter. So I think any good company will actually read a cover letter. So I try and avoid they're a waste of time mindset. If they're a good company and you want to work with them, use that as an opportunity to do it. But definitely don't rinse and repeat and use the same cover letter for all of the jobs.
I will say one thing that I do for cover letters is I keep all of them, and then I can kind of like grab bits that are relevant for the same job. So it's saving me just like that little bit of time, and you might just need to edit it a little bit rather than writing a whole one again.
Yeah, and I think there's obviously tools now which you can have a play around with, but ChatGPT, I'm not saying that's 100% the way to go, but have a little play with it and see what it spits out, because that can do a lot of the legwork for you. Obviously make sure you get your head around it and you're not just going on autopilot, but there are tools out there that can make your life easier for you.
Yeah, Lucas said that ChatGPT is great for a first draft of a cover letter, and I would agree.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're not having. I mean, it's being smart with the time, with your time, but yeah, use those on that one. Cool. Is that sounding all good?
Yep.
Great. Cool. Okay, so here we're going to go into which is probably relevant for those creatives on here. So very quick question: Has everyone started putting together a folio at the moment? Those who are looking for a design creative.
Got a couple of yets, not yet, done and refining it. Yeah, so in progress. So a couple people have started, a couple people haven't.
Yeah.
Mixed.
My thoughts on portfolios are, I don't even know if they're exclusively for creatives. I think those who are doing digital marketing, those copywriters, I've seen a very senior brand manager have a portfolio, and I see it as definitely the future of showcasing your work. I don't think that PDFs or those types of things are probably the way to go. And one of the things I would probably encourage you to do if you are at that stage where you're just starting putting something together is probably register a website domain and have a website showcasing your work versus files, attachments, etc. There's plenty of free or very cheap templates available through Canva, through Envato, through other platforms. But I think if you're starting off, and don't forget, this is going to be something that's going to be part of your professional career for the next 20, 30 years, I think having a website is a smart and great way to keep all your work together. Working with candidates that could provide a really nice URL to their work versus a candidate with loads of files attached to it, I think is just a far more professional look to it. The common challenge that we see with particularly those without commercial experience is, what do I put in my portfolio? And it's very relevant. Obviously, you've got stuff that you've done with university, but one thing, and I saw a creative director say this years ago, was if you don't have commercial experience, create dummy briefs for yourself. Create briefs with brands that are very well known and use that as a way of showing how you would go about working that brief. Okay, when we speak to creative directors, actually one of the things that is common that comes up is we're not looking for necessarily the finished work. We're more thinking about how they came up with that concept and their way of thinking. So actually being able to put together a dummy brief with a famous brand, and this is how I would go about it, actually does add a lot of weight to your application. And if you've got something that you can show a potential future employee, that's far better than not having anything at all. Okay, so you can either wait to get commercial experience, or you can create a dummy brief, which is going to allow you to demonstrate your ability to, how you work. Does that make sense? Yep. Cool. Other types of work that you can put in is working with small businesses. So is there a restaurant, is there a cafe, or is there something in the area that you can help and offer to do some work for, whether it be paid, whether it be not paid? Again, it's building out your portfolio and also getting you to think, creates that entrepreneurial spirit. Okay. Again, we're moving away from the mindset of just applying for roles when we could really be doing stuff on the side to actually build out your portfolio.
We have a question.
Yeah.
How does it come across to potential employers and recruiters to not pay for the website domain and just use the free version? So your URL would be like ryankelly.wordpress.com.
I mean, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing having the free version. I mean, the full paid version I don't think is too expensive, but I wouldn't be judging it too much on that. I think you work with what you can do, I reckon.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool. There's also and I'll probably come on to this in a second, but for those creatives, we are due to do our next mentoring program where we'll pair you up with a creative, a senior creative. Those typically happen on Zoom. So the first one is a bit of a get to know each other. You can pick their brains on the industry and what their pathway. They'll give you a bit of a brief to go away with, and then the next session will be for you to present back that brief to them. So if that's something you're interested in, keep an eye out for our next our next mentor program. Okay. Cool. So I'm just going to move into now just practical ways to kickstart your career. So attend networking events. They are fantastic. They're on every other week in Melbourne. and most major cities. So have a look on Meetup, Eventbrite, and really just try and put yourself in a room with people that are potential employees. Obviously, LinkedIn is one thing, but nothing better than actually going to an in-person event. Find a mentor, okay? As I mentioned, then we do a mentor program, but look, I think most people, whether they're super senior or not, if you reach out to them and offer to buy them a coffee and ask them if you pick their brain, people are pretty nice. People can empathize with people starting out in their career. So yeah, I think reach out and try and get a mentor as much as you can. I think register an ABN number, so an Australian business number, and start thinking like a freelancer, a sole trader. So, if there is that cafe, that restaurant, and you can start putting together some work, I think having that on your LinkedIn profile, and whether you call yourself an agency or whatever, but having something that is there instead of just a gap is something that I think is going to obviously stand out and look really cool. Yeah, register an ABN number, have that, and start trying to get some freelance work yourself. Okay, regardless of whether it's paid or not, it just gets you that process. And if you get paid, you can get in the habit of sending invoices and things like that, and it's a great experience. The other thing is we've got our interview prep pack. So on our website there is a pretty detailed blog around questions, how to prepare for interviews. Has anyone had many interviews on the call?
None, a few, 3, a few, not recently, not yet.
They're pretty scary, or they if you're not prepared and you're not sure how to go about it, they can be quite daunting. Familiarize yourself with the prep pack. Speak to a friend, run through some dummy interview questions, get in the habit of getting yourself in the game. And I think it's one of those things that nobody starts off as a great person at interviewing, but they do over time. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. Try and take out as much as you can from the experience, and know that you're not going to probably hit the mark straight away, but obviously the more interviews you have, the better.
Just a shout out for a networking event that's on tomorrow. It's the AGDA After Hours, and I believe that's a design event, right, Charles? He's nodding at me, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, awesome. So any designers in Melbourne, feel free to go along to that one. Absolutely,
and just get involved. I reckon there's definitely merit in those events, for sure. Cool. I did mention at the start that I was going to share some names of people that I would encourage you to start following. You've got Justin Welsh, who is he's an American guy who talks around solopreneur and the advantages of rather than working for somebody, work for yourself. He has a huge engagement on LinkedIn. Michael Saliba is a guy that used to work with us. He started as he was a grad. He reached out to me and said, could I come and do some work with you? He then started doing our marketing and creating content for us. And now he's working. Well, he was working in an agency. He's just got back from the States, so he's a great example that you don't need to be super experienced to start posting content. Rosie Chong, Joel Laggy, Sean Anderson, and Mitch King. They're all people that I would 100% follow. Suggest having a little look at and seeing what they post to hopefully get you a bit inspired to start posting your own. Cool. And just to finally wrap up there, and we should have sort of 10 minutes for any questions, but just some thoughts on for those who are feeling a bit, how do I get in this world of work, and how am I ever going to get a break? There's some things that I would definitely say have a bigger weight than you might imagine. So call center experience, I think, teaches you a lot about sales and customer service. I think experience in hospitality is really, really underrated, and something that if you can get it, it does eventually play a big part in your career. I think don't worry if you haven't figured it out. I think most people are still trying to figure it out at different ages, and there's a lot of pressure I think younger people put on themselves to have it all nailed by the age of 21, but that was definitely not the case for me and a lot of people. So I think it's just about having a bit of fun. You've chosen to get into this area of the business or industry for a reason, and most people in it are genuinely good people that are interesting to be around and fun. So try not to lose perspective on that, because it is a very fun and interesting industry and some great people there in it. So yeah, I think it's have fun is the sort of finale on that one, I reckon.
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions.
Cool.
Well, first one's not a question, but just shouting this out to everyone else. Design ops also run great meetups, and that's a suggestion from Luke. Thank you.
Awesome.
So first question, what is the best practice for seeking feedback on unsuccessful job applications?
Look, I think the reality is you're probably not going to get a lot of feedback. Is me being brutally honest with you. Are we talking about after the interview or?
I would assume so, yes.
Yeah. So one thing I probably haven't mentioned as best practice when you finish an interview, and this is in our interview prep, is regardless of how an interview goes, always send a follow-up email to them and thank them for their time and demonstrate that you are interested in the role. I think that's one thing that a lot of people forget to do or just don't see it as an important part of the process. So absolutely follow up straight away after the interview. In terms of the actual process, if you're applying for jobs, I would assume if you're not, and it's not, I'm not condoning this at all, but a lot of companies won't come back to you with tailored feedback on applications. Okay, so that's hence why try not to just apply and rethink about the job search process.
Okay. So next question is, how would you recommend selling lateral or soft skills obtained in other roles, and how much weight should they take up in like a CV?
I mean, do you have an example there?
Caroline, are you able to come off mute, or would you rather type?
I suppose I'm thinking I was working as an assessment coordinator in a previous role. That was what I was doing for the last 4 years up until now. So I suppose doing more coordination style work.
Yep.
There was a lot of, I guess, web dev adjacent stuff, but also just that general coordination experience, I suppose. I'm curious as to how much I should be.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you've got to take out the key skills that were required for that job. So was it like juggling multiple projects, liaising with different stakeholders? Was that part of the role?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I would be looking at those key aspects of it and then connecting them into the requirements of a potential future job. Yeah, absolutely. Dissect what you've done in the past, pull out the key components of it, and then bring that across in either your cover letter or any communication with a potential employer.
Great, thanks.
Okay. All right, another question. So I've got overseas marketing experience, recently moved to Australia and trying to get into the market, and that's 7 years of marketing experience from overseas. And it seems daunting trying to get a job, and how should they place themselves in the market considering they're an overseas talent?
Yeah, and again, I'm giving very honest, and hopefully this is okay, but it is a challenge for those coming from overseas with lots of experience. I think there is and I think this is a wrongful perception, and I think there's a question mark around candidates' ability to grasp the nuances of the Australian market. So, for those who've come from other markets, there's a bit of well, how would they go with us? So the reality is, unfortunately, that there will be a requirement to go in at a more junior level. And I think it's just about looking for those openings, whether they be entry level, whether they be slightly junior, but that is, as a rule of thumb, a bit of a requirement for those coming in without the Australian experience. I don't agree with it, but that is very much a reality, unfortunately.
Should I include hospitality and retail experience in my resume, or just the relevant internship and freelance experience?
No, look, I think absolutely hospitality, definitely. That's, I mean, I look at those sorts of things, and funny things I look for when I'm looking at people's resume, if I'm hiring, is things like working at McDonald's. I think that those who have an open mind will look at those things and go, okay, well, if they've done X, Y, Z, then they're probably going to have X, Y, Z skills. Not everyone's open-minded, but I think it definitely doesn't do any harm to have those on your CV for sure.
Especially in the early days, right?
100%, yeah.
Another question: when interviewers, you get that rejection email, they say they wish to keep your application in the pool for possible future opportunities. Is that bullshit?
I don't want to speak on everyone's behalf, but yeah, it is a fairly generic response. So yeah, look, I think take that and but don't don't be too downhearted about it. I think use that as, okay, well, let's reach out to the hiring manager, thank them for their time, connect in with them on LinkedIn. And before you know it, they will start seeing content that you're producing, and then you have a far better chance of doing it. So, yeah, don't be too down about it.
If I were juggling studies, freelancing, and retail work all at the same time, how will I quantify the value of all those experiences on my CV through all the similar time period?
Oh, look, I don't think you necessarily need to quantify it. I think just having them listed on your resume, and then having that will be more of a conversation piece in there. And I think if you are in that situation, then I think it's really important to demonstrate to the person interviewing you is that you've been able to successfully juggle the three of those things, because it's definitely not an easy thing to do. So yeah, I think having all three on your resume is definitely worthwhile doing.
I had all three on my resume at one time as well, so I think people take notice of it.
100%, yeah, 100%.
Any more questions? All right, we've got another one. How do recruiters view you if you've landed a junior role before, but it was actually cut short due to layoffs?
Look, I think having experience is better than no experience, and I think that you'd have to be a bit naive to not think that people have been laid off in the last few years for various reasons. So I can only speak on my behalf. I don't see it as a big red flag. And I think if you're thinking about how to present that, whether it be your LinkedIn profile, maybe just having a note under the section on that role of being saying made redundant due to X. Yeah, I don't think it's a big red flag at all.
So another question. So showcasing freelance work experience, sorry, adds value to both the LinkedIn profile and the resume. Does the companies consider them like the same weight? Like, which one's more important?
LinkedIn or CV?
Yeah.
I mean, your CV is, I think in short, it should be on both. I think your LinkedIn profile, is a really good way of just having it constantly updated. I'd also mention that having referrals or recommendations on your profile is also something that's super helpful. So if you do manage to get some freelance work, ask them for a testimonial as well to put at the bottom of your profile. So I think having both is important.
Cool. We might just wait a little bit to see if there's any more questions, but other than that, it looks like we might be done.
So my quick question, is anyone going to go down the path of doing some content? Any takers?
Yep, we've got a yes. Yep, we'll try to.
Well, here's a little agreement. If you want to, as a starting point, you can, if you like, mention that you attend this course, Creative Natives, etc., and all of the Creative Natives team will get behind your post, which should hopefully give you a bit of a head start on the algorithm. So I know a couple of people, I think Charles might have done it in the past, just sort of did a little post about attending the course, and all the team got on it and gave it a bit of hype. So if anyone wants to do that, they're more than welcome to, and the team will get behind you.
You just have to tag us so we know, that's all.
Yeah. Does everyone know how to tag? So it's just the @ symbol and then Creative Natives, and then you can do it the same for me and Leah, and then that will be that could be your first piece of content.
We have one final question, and Caroline, I might get you to clarify this a little bit. What would you consider as red flags or green flags that we may not have thought of? But red flags in terms of what, Caroline?
You mentioned that McDonald's, for instance, might be a green flag for you.
Yeah.
In the same way, when you're looking at an applicant, what kind of things might be that we might not expect, would either put you off them or.
Yeah, so I'll keep with the green flags, and I think traveling is a big green flag for me. So if you've been traveling, have that on your resume. I think if you've done volunteer work, if you've done sporting achievements, if you've done the things, I think often people think, oh, that's not relevant, but I think it does tell a lot of the story around people's values and what they're about. In terms of red flags, I mean, obviously having real short tenure at different organizations, I mean, that can happen a couple of times, but I think any more than a few becomes a glaring red flag. But I think at the point you're at, you've almost got this blank canvas to start your career and your personal brand. So I think red flags when it comes to social, or having extreme views on politics and that religion and things like that, I would avoid all of that. And actually, I probably a big red flag is negativity with your content. I think that I just don't see any benefit in being negative with content, even if that's what you think. So always be thinking about that when it comes to your content. Is the tone of voice positive? If it is, great. If it's not, then maybe it's not. And the only times we will be negative at Creative Natives if we're trying to highlight bad behavior from, say, a client or something that we don't fundamentally agree with. But I think at the point where you're starting on your content journey, I would just make sure that the tone is kept positive.
Great, thanks.
Great, I think that's all of our questions for today.
Look at that, 1 minute to 1. So thank you, everyone. I hope there's something you got from today. We will send out a bit of a recap and some documents and some information that you might find useful. Keep an eye out for our content. We do put out a lot of hopefully valuable information that you can use for it. Give us a tag, give us something, and we'll give you a bit of love back. And good luck. And as I said, if there's any of you that are not sure on a piece of content or you want some help, just drop me a line, drop me a message and ask my opinion, and I'll do my best to come back to you as quickly as I can.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.